Hi YouTube, welcome back to Wtf Rc Cars. So, more mods for the GT2 VE, and this time we've got the blue anodized aluminium A-arms for the lower rear. So, we're going to be fitting this one, and we're going to be working all on the back end of this, so let's get you in for a closer look so you can see what we're doing. Right, so first thing we're going to want to do is take the lower shock mounts off. So let's get both these out. So we got one screw in either side. So that's the shock pins. So that's got them loose. Then probably going to be easier to take the screw out of the rear anti-roll bar or sway bar. So that's got one of them out. So that's just two sway bar screws out. So that's got the sway bar away from the RC itself. So we're then going to have to remove the wheel from either side. So, once we've got his wheels off, I think it's probably going to be easier to remove the entire hub. Seems though we're removing the bottom arm. So if you just remove the one screw from the rear hub on either side, this is the first time I've stripped this one down this far. So you've got a little spacer that goes to the front, a little shim if you like. So make sure that shim goes towards the front when you're building it back up. Right, so we should be able to pop the shocks out now. So I think we'll get away with just removing the grub screw. Let's see if I can find out what size these are. They're not 2mm. Have they gone for a 1.5? So you've then got a little grub screw on the collar of each one of the pins. So you're just going to need to crack that off a tiny bit and it should come out. Then you should be able to slide out the hinge pins. And then the last final thing we're going to have to look at is the droop screw. So it looks like they're set at 3mm. So it looks like the dimensions are about right. The only thing missing is these two holes, but we're not using them for anything at the minute, so we need to get the droop screw out, and that's going to be a 2mm hex. It looks like these are threaded, so that should help us. So what I'm going to do is put a tiny bit of thread lock inside just to hold it, so it should pull the thread lock through. And then we're going to need it set to 3mm. got that set to 3mm. So we should be able to line this back up and these have got nylon bushings in the ends of these arms, so it should help with the durability of them. So if we push his pin back in, then we need his little collar. So we tightened his little collar back up. Right, let's see how many of these screws actually fit where they should do, or even threaded as we need them to be. So because we got the sway bar kit on this one, let's refit the sway bar kit first. That doesn't feel like them screws fit at all well, so we might have to change the sway bar screws, but let's check what else fits. So if we pop drive shaft back in, and then we're going to need his little shim. And I believe these are fitted as stock in the lower hole. So it looks like that screw fits perfect. Let's see how the shocks fit. So the shock pins don't fit at all. It looks like the holes are actually open and threaded in the back. But these don't come with any grub screws or anything. So we're going to have to find some different screws to mount the shocks, and it looks like we're going to need different screws to mount the sway bar. So it looks like we're going to be going M2, and these are threaded all the way through. And I'm going to try these without thread lock and see if we get any issues with them working the way loose. If we do, I can always put a tiny bit of thread lock on them. So, do we have one for the side? Yep. So we've got one for other side, so that'll replace them two. Let's see if we've got anything that'll work for the sway bar, because I think they need to be slightly longer looking at it. So sway bar wise, looks like that's going to be a good fit. So again, it's going to be M2. So let's get a measurement of what size screws we're going to need for this. So we're going to need an M2. So for the sway bar, you're going to need an M2 of 14mm thread length. And then for the shocks, you're going to need an M2, and that's going to need to be 19mm, 19 to 20mm for the shock bolt. And this is why I never ever 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 throw any screws away for RC cars, because you never know when you're going to need them. So let's get the one for the sway bar back in. And to be totally honest, I'd much rather use these hex head than the screws that Kyosho insist on using, because I just don't understand using them at this day and age on an RC car. But that's one side fitted, so let's crack on. So we can remove that. We've got the hinge pin to pop out. And then the last thing we're going to need from this is the little grub screw, and you can screw them straight through. So we'll get that out the bottom. I'm seriously considering looking for an entire screw kit for this car to just replace every single one of the stock screws and get rid of all the screw heads in one go, because I'm just not a fan at all. I'd much rather have an Allen key or hex head, whatever you want to call it. I just don't see any place on an RC car for normal screws. Now looking at these, I'm not sure if you can flip these. They do look pretty similar each side. But let's see if we can get this mounted. And I'm going to make it 3mm depth, same as the other side. Right, so what we need to do now is get as arm in position, get the hinge pin. This is going to be a lot more difficult because I'm on the wrong side of RC, but it should give you guys a better idea of how we're putting it back together. So that's got that into position. Then we just need to fasten his little collar back on. You don't need to go crazy tight with these. Then we're going to use our new screw to mount our sway bar. And because we switched to the hex heads, I can use the MIP ball bits to get in. Then we're going to replace his drive shaft. And we want this little shim in place. And then we can try and drop the pin through. Then we want to drop his shock down, and these little balls on end can be awkward. And again, we're going to use his new screw to screw the shocks in. Does seem like it feels a little sturdier. So we can now drop his wheels back on, and then wheel nuts with the serrated bits facing the wheel, because we don't want them coming loose. I would quickly tighten these up. So, pots will no longer be using the original shock pins and the original screws for the anti-roll bar and the two bottom A-arms on the rear. So, we now have nice anodized aluminium A-arms on the bottom rear. Suspension feels nice, the wheels are sat where they should. And it seems to have took a little bit of the slop out of it as well. It's one thing I did notice with this car, there's quite a bit of playing things when you first get it. But, right, let's wrap it up. So, carrying on the journey of modifying the GT2 VE. So far we've got the anodized upper A-arms, we've got the carbon towers, we've got the anodized aluminium lower A-arms, and I think up to yet the only thing that's been bolt on where we haven't had to change anything is the front shock tower. The rear one we had to modify the body mount. The front arms were really difficult to get the tie bars to screw in, and we had to use drill to put them in. And the rear arms, the stock screws don't fit. So 3 components out of the 4 we fitted to this we've had to mod or change, but we're getting there. It does look quite nice, so I'm going to carry on modding this. But if you want to catch those videos, don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to hit the notification bell. Share to friends and family or anybody else that you think might want to be bored stiff listening to me for a bit. And I'll catch you guys again in the next one.